All right, this is Todd Atkins, and I'm back at Miguel Adorati, and we're doing another kind of fight review here. And this one that I just kind of looked up on a whim today. I was kind of thinking some good, you know, interesting stuff that is obscure. I think that's what we like to do with these fight reviews because it's outside the UFC. And I remember watching Gilbert Yvel and Bob Schrijber, people like this that fought, from Holland. And this fight was actually in rings in Japan, but featured two guys from Holland, big names back then. And I wanted to let Miguel kind of just start and talk a little bit about this fight first.
Yep, this is I'm not sure. It says Rings Holland, so it may be in Holland that they fought. It's
Right.
February 8th of 1998, so definitely getting to be on the ancient history kind of spot. It was at the Sport Hall in Amsterdam. Um, I think it's an interesting and kind of historic fight to pick because um, the Dutch scene back then was pretty robust. They're known for their kickboxing more than anything. But these guys also kind of had a little bit of underworld kind of personalities when they were young. Bob Schrijber, my understanding is he was a bouncer at the Bulldog clubs, which were the marijuana smoking clubs in Amsterdam. And Gilbert, is a guy with a reputation for kind of being a little bit crazy, a little bit of a loose cannon. I believe he's knocked out refs in some of his fight, one of his fights and stuff like that. And this is going to be a situation where they probably met in the ring here. It's always good to be paid and get your money and stuff. But there was also a little bit of bragging rights that was going to be established here. They're both Dutch, and I neither was going to back down or let the other guy just have an easy match or whatever. So they fought more than once. This is the first meeting. Bob is considerably slimmer than you see him later on in his career. Both of these guys probably got to about 50 fights in their pro careers anyway. But yeah, I don't recall the exact details of the fight. I like watching them fresh like this, but I'd be surprised if this doesn't turn into mayhem.
Yeah, I watched it. It was a pretty good war. So, and one of the things you really see is Bob's toughness in this fight. People might be familiar with Gilbert, but Bob, Dirty Bob Schrijber, as we called him, yeah, as he's known, um, he was incredibly tough, and you're going to see it in this fight. Um, do you want to go ahead and
Yeah,
get
Bob,
into it?
Bob is not a guy who gives up.
Yeah.
He's
Do you want to
married
go
to
ahead and get
Erin
into it?
Verhoeven, a woman fighter from back in that era as well. So they were delving into the mixed martial arts, but he like I said, he had his other jobs and things like that, and it could be some debt collecting and things like that. A lot of the promoters and people from that era of the Dutch scene wound up, passing away early. Certain activities, turned up in their lives that ended things. There are a few guys that are in jail, and there are a few of the members from the '90s Dutch scene that are living retired in Thailand. So you can take from that what you want.
All right. You want to go ahead and jump into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So I'm going to bring up the fight here. Can you see it there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So we're going to bring up the fight here, and we'll just kind of start.
Gilbert walking in.
Yeah, and Gilbert was really, when I first saw him, I was like, wow, this guy's an incredible striker,
Yeah. The Dutch, like I said, they were heavier on the kickboxing. 5 years after we got Remco Pardo and Gerard Gordeau, real true UFC pioneers. So the Dutch were always heavily involved in early MMA. When promoters wanted to do international fights, you could always count on finding Dutch guys. Sometimes some of them may not have been so skilled, but always tough and always willing to fight. In future years, you got guys like Melvin Manhoff, and they have a lot of MMA fighting pedigree in Holland.
Yeah.
Dit jongens worden twee grote toppers hier uit Nederland. Ik vind jullie nog een beetje rust voor. Ik wil alle fans horen. Alle fans.
We're hearing some of the Dutch commentary probably on your end. I don't know if you can read it. Both big guys too. Both, you know, Bob, like I mentioned, is slim here. But 110 kilos is not a joke. He's about 230, 240. Gilbert, 96 kilos. I don't know if that's a spread. There may be something wrong there. They look about.
Yeah,
Gilbert
they
also
look
looks
similar.
a little bit. You shake hands a little bit. I don't think that was exactly a friendly handshake. It was, I think, more of like, okay, we're about to do some damage here. Bob wants
And
to.
for people watching this with the rules, this was a palm strikes to the head, closed fist to the body.
Yeah, I'm not sure that those lines aren't going to get blurred in this one. And the knees and everything count, you know. Kicks and things like that. That was all allowed in rings. It was just no close fist punching. But I'm not sure we're going to see a lot of groundwork in this one, which makes it for a rugged fight. You know, slapping yourselves, even the slaps, you know, people might look down upon as different than a closed fist and stuff like that. But you can get a lot of power. Bas Rutten, another Dutch fighter, you know, you could get a lot of power from a good open hand if you're holding your wrist correctly and things like that. And, you know, that's a lot of punishment to take. Even in the opening minute, it looks like, you know, there may be some face grabbing and things like that. You know, like I said, these guys, neither guy was known for a huge amount of respect for the rules. Bob Schrijber in Pride, you know, got disqualified, I believe, for foot stomping people and you know, people after the bell and things. And like I said, Gilbert's knocked out referees and things. Neither guy here is exactly yeah, they're ruthless. It's not, the rules were secondary to them in many occasions. You could see Bob holding his ribs there at one point, like he took some serious knee or kick there. And Gilbert's relentless, you know. And the other thing is again, this is not boxing. They're kickboxers, and they're not, you know, neither guy here is showing me a lot of defense. They're walking through and taking the opponent's shots. You see Bob's chest and body starting to redden a little bit. It'd be a little harder to notice on Gilbert because of the tone, but I'm sure Gilbert's showing
Just
the same
eating knees,
effects.
flush knees to the face.
Yeah. And yeah, and you see Bob's response was a closed fist to the head, and the ref warned him for it. It wouldn't have surprised me if Bob gave him another one right away. Gilbert at this point kind of beginning to flurry a little more, making Bob take more damage. You can see him starting to breathe through his mouth as well as he backs off a little bit there. How can you not be tired already at this point, you know? I mean, and back then, this is the 90s, these guys were, like I said, you know, they were guys that bounced and did other jobs and things like that. This isn't where, you know, they were doing great road work. Gilbert looks in good shape. Bob was never famous for being, you know, ripped or fantastic shape, but you know, when it comes to fighting, he's you can tell he's done it before, you know. He's not he's forcing Gilbert to throw the kitchen sink at him because Bob just walks through punch and he takes it, you know.
Yeah, he's incredibly tough, Bob. Wasn't the most technical guy, but he was real tough.
Yeah. I got to meet him a couple of times. By the end of his career, here again, he's more rugged and maybe, you know, a street guy from from Holland. But at the end of his career, he understood what was going on. And I remember in Russia, he did a fantastic opening where there were strobe lights everywhere, and he walked out and kind of did the robot movements, and with the strobe lights, the effect, he caught it. He caught a good effect there. It looked good. It was a great entrance on a long ramp in those shows and things. And yeah, he was a little heavier at that point, but he knew the show at the end of it, not just throwing punches and fists here. That's the danger. Yeah, we're going to go to a round here. That's the danger of what Gilbert did there. Was it seemed like, kind of Bob had weathered the storm there at the end and was starting to throw a flurry that Gilbert wasn't answering. Gilbert was going to be forced to take some damage, and maybe he got saved a little bit by the bell, or at least gets a chance to rest up for a minute here before they continue. Gilbert may very well have gotten himself a little bit tired with all the striking he did. Right? But at this point, I would have to say I give Gilbert this first round, although you could never really count on what the rings judges were looking at. They didn't use any groundwork. They didn't use any rope escapes. So, and I'm not sure they bought Japanese judges. Maybe they're Dutch, so who knows? But especially in these times, these old times, it would be very difficult to predict exactly what the judges were looking at. But Gilbert almost scored a knockdown. Bob caught himself on the rope. Bob gives him a kiss. So Gilbert's earned Bob's respect. Gilbert doesn't look like he's got a lot left in the tank, but he comes out throwing hard and flying knees and stuff. So that kiss is a little bit of a surprise because, well, this could have wound up being, and I think their future matches wound up being where they just stopped liking each other. Here they seem to have some mutual respect after what they've been through, which often happens in competitive fights like this. But like I said, neither guy is known for being overly friendly with their opponents or at times even disrespectful. So very interesting. This is a brawl, though. This could have happened, in a bar. Oh, Bob going to the ground.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see what happens here. Rings has some interesting rules. I think that there could be a quick stand-up here if there's not enough action. I think he is allowed to strike the body. He's going for a footlock, which, especially with Japanese judges and things, they're both going for footlocks. And Gilbert got him. So Bob took the risk of going to the ground and got caught. Gilbert showing a little bit of sophistication with the groundwork there. Again, Bob going to congratulate him. Feeling a good competitive match. Like Bob had fun in this. And look, if you look at the ruggedness of the fight, Bob was having fun. So it just goes to show you that you guys were definitely the real deal, among the toughest people that you're going to find. Especially from this era,
Yeah, I think Bob was definitely one of the toughest guys in MMA for his time because he wasn't super technical. A lot of the fights he'd take a bit of a beating, and just continue to fight.
Dish out more, just to come back and dish it out and stuff. And there you've got. Doesn't look like they had a Japanese presence, although the judges, the Japanese may have sent over judges. Definitely using the rings. Promotion, that's Akira Maeda's promotion, and this was called King of the Ring in Holland, and the big tournaments of that era in the world were the rings tournaments called King of Kings, where you had everybody participating in those, from Jeremy Horn to Randy Couture to Renzo Gracie to Maurice Smith, Dan Henderson, those were the biggest tournaments in the world at the time. And this may actually have been a qualifier to get Gilbert in there. It warrants looking at and stuff. But the Rings is an organization that definitely had pedigree, especially for this era of the 90s. These were some of the most exciting tapes that you were going to get you know, in the tape trading days.
Yeah, I miss those days, you know.
Yeah, yeah, I do. You know, now you get it. It's not cool. You know, it's like, you sent it to your phone.
The
It's
excitement
like,
of getting the VHS tape and
yeah, you know, getting a FedEx package or you know, the envelope in the mail with, you can tell there's that one tape or two tapes or what's in there, and yeah, you know, the good old days. And this fight definitely harkens back to the good old days. I'm glad we got a chance to watch it again. I think you did an amazing job in picking two legendary guys. In I think a fight that'll stand up, that when people see it, they're going to say, "Man, you know, they went at it." I mean, it's not punches to the face, but at the same time, they're not wearing gloves either. You could see Schrijber's body starting to redden as he gets hit and hit, and there were many times where he was covering up to not get hit. You know, and that's a little bit unusual. Gilbert flurried a lot, and at the end of the day, Bob made the mistake of taking it to the ground, and Gilbert caught him. It shows you that by '98, these Dutch guys, and again, Rings was probably the best paying organization in the world at this point. This is before Pride, and the UFC wasn't paying anything at this point. You know, neither of these guys went to the UFC. Gilbert may have had a one fight, but Bob didn't. Um, and it probably was because it wasn't interesting to them. The money wasn't there. They probably went to Japan and made maybe five figures, you know. But so they were putting their studying into it, and hey, after a slugfest like that, it ended in a footlock.
yeah. And I know in their second fight, Bob scored a knockout, so maybe we'd have to watch that one at some point.
Yeah, I think we should. We definitely need to. And I think there may be a trilogy in this one.
Yeah.
And you know, I think that these guys are both the kind of fighters that may make multiple appearances in this segment.
Yeah, and you know, there's so many fights outside the UFC that can be watched, and I got a lot of them on my mind, and you know, it's always great to do another one with Miguel here, and the historian that he is.
Yeah, on Sunday, I'd like to hook up with Ron and watch Ron versus Shoney Carter. That's one that we've had in the works for a little bit. I wasn't able to pull it off last weekend. I know Ron's availability is on the weekends, but I think that's a classic. It brings us back to Hawaii and Super Bowl and some of your roots. Were you at that fight?
No, this one that was in King of the Cage, so it was outside of Hawaii. I think it was in California somewhere.
Ah, okay.
Mhm.
Okay, good. Good for Ron. He got a little bit of a trip off the islands. Yeah. I think those guys were uh, definitely proud of fighting on the island, but that they were put to do a lot of hard work there in defense, and they didn't get a lot of accolades to show for it, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, much respect, and same thing for these guys. These guys, Bob Schrijber and Gilbert Yvel, won't be known to most of the public that watches our program. You know, it's a limited public, but still, if you're a UFC fan and you're familiar with the UFC, then these guys aren't even on your radar.
Yeah. But they should be, you know, and this is one of the things that I'd like to do is show in some of these fights is some of these incredible competitors from back in the day that may not be known to your average fan today.
Oh no, these guys are pioneers, man. You know,
Yeah.
they elevated the Japanese scene, which stayed ahead of the UFC for a long time, and carried the level of the game. By '98, these guys were participating in the biggest organization in the world, which is Rings.
Mhm.
That's just the bottom line. So they had progressed and put the work in, and they deserve to be remembered. Especially, look at what we just saw. That was a lot of work that they put into that fight, and a lot of rugged, you know, ruthless work.
Yeah, I mean, and I think when you're talking about Gilbert, especially, he was a guy who was kind of as electric as almost anybody you'd see today in terms of his stand-up.
Yeah, he reminds me of, you know, there's certain similarities to a guy who did make a UFC run where I think he actually held the belt, was Alistair Overeem.
Yeah.
And you know, you would have to consider Gilbert a predecessor of him, maybe a little more raw than Alistair. Alistair later on, you know, added other elements to his game and stuff. But you you know, back in the day, I'm sure Alistair and Gilbert, you know, if they had crossed paths, we would have gotten another classic fight like this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always great to watch another classic fight. I mean, I could do all these all the time with Miguel, and it's definitely something that you'll be seeing more from us and on his channel, the MMA Collector 74.
Yes, sir. We'll get this up here in the next little bit, and then we'll go ahead and try to get us over to the next fight.
Yeah. And as always, people check out our stuff. Please subscribe and subscribe to Miguel's channel, MMA Collector 74 on YouTube. And, you know, we got the 99-cent memberships if y'all want to check that out. And as always, we appreciate your support. And until next time, take care.